Today I'd like to talk to you a bit about color blending techniques, specifically how to achieve a gradient versus an ombre effect. Both of these involve starting with one color and transitioning to something else, and doing it in a way that is really kind of a smooth, seamless transition so we don't have a sharp distinction of one color to the other. Let me show you some examples so you can get a sense of what I mean for each. For instance, this is an example of an ombre effect where we have cerulean blue at the bottom and I've added increasing amounts of white to it so that it is seamlessly transitioning to a lighter version of that same cerulean blue hue. The distinction for an ombre effect is that you really have the same hue, the same color on the color wheel, in this case just the blue, and you're only changing the value of that color. You're changing it to be more intense or less intense depending on how much white has been added. A gradient effect, on the other hand, involves a couple of different colors on the color wheel, a couple of different hues specifically. And so in this case, we have kind of a bright pink on one end and then a bright yellow at the other end. And there's really a smooth transition from one to the other where you don't see a sharp line of where one color begins and another color ends. So it's really just kind of this smooth integration of two different colors, whether they're two different hues or a color and white. And you're creating just this seamless transition where we don't see a sharp distinction from one to the next. Kind of to show you some examples of both of these effects gone wrong, I'll show you the backside of this example for the ombre effect. This would not be an ombre effect at all. In fact, this would just be an example of cerulean blue butted right up against titanium white. And in this case, we have a clear distinction of where one color begins and where the white starts. And so this would not be something that you're trying to achieve. This would be an ombre fail. The gradient fail is on the backside of this. And I have the pink at the top and the yellow at the bottom. And there is a little bit of blending in the middle, so it's not such a sharp distinction as we just saw with the ombre effect gone wrong. But you can clearly see where we have the pink and where we have the yellow and just a little bit of blending in the middle. So this lacks also that smooth transition that the other side of this example shows us. I'm going to demonstrate how to get each of these effects here so that you can see how you might do this at home. I'd like to demonstrate using acrylic paints how to achieve the ombre effect. That is the transition of one color to a lighter version of itself, or vice versa. We're going to start with some cerulean blue, and I'm going to put kind of a healthy blob of it at the bottom of my canvas paper. And then on the other end of the canvas paper, I'm going to add some just plain old titanium white. So I've got either end of the paper covered, and I'm going to start with my cerulean blue, and I have a piece of canvas paper that is taped down onto a clipboard using light adhesive artist tape. I'm going to spread about halfway up, and then I'm going to use a paper towel to remove some of the excess that has accumulated on my brush before I start spreading the white around. Just picked up a little bit of the white, and I'm just kind of moving it around on the end of the canvas. I'm working my way down toward the blue, knowing as I get closer to where it meets the blue, I'm going to start picking up some of that color. And you see right here, I still have a sharp distinction of the white area versus the blue area with just a little bit of mixing in the middle. So my challenge is going to be to try to integrate those two so that there's a smooth flow from one to the other. And I'm just going back and forth. I don't want to start right in the middle either like that because it kind of leaves like a weird brush mark that makes it very obvious that something happened there. I'm really making an effort to go edge to edge, paying attention to my brush strokes. And I'm kind of using a lighter touch as I'm getting down to the pure blue and carrying some of that blue up to the white. I'm really just going back and forth here. And then I'm just kind of looking for anything that looks a little bit abrupt. And if I feel like I've accumulated too much, I'm gonna wipe off that excess again, hopping around, smoothing it out. And I would say I'm pretty happy with that as the ombre effect example. I've got a deeper blue down here and it transitions upward to kind of fade out to be closer and closer to white at the top. Now I'd like to demonstrate how to get the gradient effect for color blending. And so I've put at the top of my canvas some of this medium magenta color. And then at the bottom I have cadmium yellow medium hue. And I'm going to start with the yellow and smear that around. I'll get about halfway up the canvas. And then I'm going to wipe some of the excess off, and I'm going to pick up the magenta and keep it most pure at the top, working down toward the yellow. And as I get down toward the yellow, I'm going to start integrating the two colors. Really just going for a continuous, smooth transition. And I'm going to go almost all the way down to the very bottom, but not quite, so that I leave a little bit of that pure yellow. And then again, almost all the way up to the top, but not quite, so that I leave just a little bit of that pure magenta. And I'm pretty satisfied with how that is turning out. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any comments or questions, drop them in the comments below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.